Hi, it's Michael and Vickers from the Business Babble, and today's guest is going to be Alan Russell from Forth Road Ltd.
Alan is going to be talking to us about change management and how important it is to have those conversations when you're taking strategic direction changes in your business, listening to the voices of fear, reason, data.
So don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
Middle Eastern part, but it's really interesting when you start looking at businesses like that because they have a specific, where it's founder-led. The two brothers were still involved, and it's interesting because the family is involved. So we've had to create a family structure, and this is what the family does. And then you have a CEO, and this is what the CEO does. And the family can't come into the CEO's lane, and the CEO can't. So it's really, really interesting when you start doing that, and then consolidating the group and making sure that the group realizes efficiency gains. Big words. It's just one accounting system across 9 businesses, not just 9 different accounting systems. So it's quite it's interesting. It keeps you really, really busy.
You have to have it reflect in real life. That's how that company's going to function. So you have to set it up to match that rather than saying, well, this is how a best-in-class business would do things. And it's like, that's not going to work when it's that dynamic.
It's always interesting because with the invention of Chat GPT, you can Google, you can ask it anything. Okay, it'll give you fantastic things. And I always go, everything can be fun, but do you actually know how to implement it in a real world scenario and adjust it so it can do that? And that's something that it's clever enough, but it can't do that. It can give you the theory. And a lot of people read the book theory and they're great at reading the book theory. When it comes to the practical implementation, and you see it a lot when guys start talking about numbers, and then they go, oh, no, we're going to use a discounted cash flow. And I can see that everybody gets very nervous because if you don't understand what it is, you're just like, oh, such big words. And you just need to dumb it down and just go, you know what, I'm never the smartest guy in the room. I ask lots of dumb questions, I'm sure. But business isn't interesting. It is interesting at the moment. I think businesses are under pressure, whether you're large, whether you're medium, whether you're small. Everybody's feeling the pinch at the moment. Everywhere across the UK, everywhere across in a global scale. I think businesses are under pressure and we need to evolve. And sometimes that's difficult because you've been doing it for such a long time. How do you evolve? What is the next big thing? Everybody's looking for, investors are looking for those next 10Xs. And I met with some angel investors and they were very disillusioned because out of 10 investments, only 2 actually make their money. But they've had 2 or 3 go pop in the last year where they just go, sorry, we're not putting in any more money. It's just draining. And taking that to market. I think that's sort of where businesses are. They're looking at it and everybody's looking for that golden one, that little bit of magic dust. And every business is different because if every business was the same, some guy would have written a magical formula. We'll be reading the book, we'll be implementing it. And guys like us would be out of jobs because nobody would need anybody. But it isn't. So it's just about understanding that. So, Mark, tell us a little bit about yourselves. Tell us a little bit where you guys come from, what you guys do. And then
did you say Mark?
That's Alan.
Alan, sorry. Alan.
And I'm so glad we recorded that one. We're definitely keeping that in.
We are there. Is there anything? Oh, well, I'm going to just say.
So, what we do is we just started freestyling. So there's no editing to this. So then it becomes really authentic.
Will you edit the coughs and sneezes out?
Absolutely.
No, that just becomes, that is who you are today.
No, he's Mark today. He's not Alan. Today he's Mark.
Identify as Mark.
Today you identify as Mark.
That's a different conversation.
But we'll talk about that. If there's something that we sort of touch that's sensitive, just say, that's sort of sensitive information. But normally we try and stay away from controversial subjects. Sometimes we don't.
Do we? No. I think the whole point of this is have the open conversation and discuss things. I mean, the wet wipes are saying in the background, if they want to be offended by it, that's up to them. But all we're having is conversation. We're not lifting hands, fighting. We're just having words here. That's all it is.
I can't imagine anything else will be controversial or offensive. More likely to be boring. I mean, the only sort of no-go area is I'll not talk about specific clients.
No,
just
sure.
the nature of the work that we do.
Course,
So
you can't tell us about your...
Well, certainly not recent or current real clients.
So you won't tell us about your Ministry of Defence contracts, that type of thing.
So today we have Alan Russell from Forth Road Ltd. So thank you very much for coming here.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Aye. And basically, with the podcast, it's an edutainment podcast. So for our listeners, our viewers, they're trying to find out what people's backstories are or what it is, what they do as a business, and how it aligns with all the other businesses that are out there. And I mean, for Forth Road Limited, you are the consultants that can go into businesses, and I'll let you discuss more about what you do, because I do not want to go off on the wrong tangent here, because I sometimes do that. So what challenges do you help business owners and businesses solve?
Well, we're quite a strange business, really. I mean, we've going a long time. So I'd literally been in the same job for half of my life. So I joined in 1999, not long out of university, and I did an economics degree, but I've never been an expert in economics or really talked about economics in my work. What we do is when businesses have a change of strategic direction, we help with that. Initially, usually by managing a conversation. So it can be a board conversation, could be a leadership team conversation that we go in there, sometimes for a few hours, sometimes for a few days to help with that. And then there's usually something to be done after that. And because the conversation has gone really well, they often, not always, but they often want us to stick around and help manage the next bit of the conversation as they roll that idea out to people. And what we found is that unless you're an expert and have the technical answer, the best way through a change that's uncertain is to take the people along with you and listen really, really well to what people are facing, what they're struggling with, what things excite them, what things don't excite them, and where the points of tension are, and work through them. So it's all through. I mean, they're big conversations that can sometimes last 5 or 6 years, right. But they are taking the people along a direction that nobody really knows where they're going to end up. They have some aspirations, but it's all uncertain until you actually get there. So they can be any businesses. It can be large, and most of it's international or multinational companies that we work with. They can be IT companies, they can be oil companies, they can be mining companies. We're working with a company that runs foundries just now. Anything, and we're not experts in any one of those fields, but we've developed expertise in having conversations with people. And that's really at the heart of doing something difficult.
How difficult is it to implement a change management system when the culture is misaligned? So the board has got a certain culture that they want to drive, but 3 levels down, the culture is completely different. Is that harder or more? Is it more difficult, or is the road longer?
I think it's almost inevitable you'll encounter that, because if you're changing direction, it is difficult for people. You're leaving something behind. And whether that's just a way of working or whether it's a way of being organized, or say you've been in a small company that's just been acquired into a global group, it's going to be different for you than it is for people in another part of that global group who've been there for years. So you'll always find some of that sort of cultural kind of disconnect or tension in there that you have to work through. So yeah, it's always there. Sometimes right on the surface, but it's always there.
There is the undercurrent.
Yeah.
Do you think that, just an example, when a small organization is acquired by a much larger organization, how do the people adapt to change? Do you think people like change, or do you think they sort of shy away from change?
There's bits of it going on all the time. I mean, one of the things that sits behind our work is a set of kind of approaches to change management. And one of the things it says there is that we've all got these competing kind of tensions within us. We call them the voices of change. So there's a bit of you that will always be excited about something if we can just find the right conversation to have that. But you can't get at that if you're really, really worried about what's going to happen next week or next year. So there's the voice of fear is there as well. And if there's something to be afraid of, something to be worried about, whether it's real or whether it's not, you're going to hear that one more loudly. Yeah. Most people do anyway. Some people are kind of deaf to that voice a little bit. And you have to have conversations about risk, and they can probably engage with that rather than what they're fearful of. But that's always there as well. So again, I like to use the phrase dumbing it down for me. Yeah. So you're going into an organisation that have either been there's been acquisitions or they've been bought over, whatever you want to call it. You're going into a smaller group that's been taken over by a bigger group, or vice versa, whatever it may be. What's the first initial stages of your business when they're going in there? What are you actually trying to find out? Well, we're not actually trying to find out anything. We're trying to help them have the right conversation they need to have. And as I say, it usually starts with a board meeting or a leadership team meeting where somebody has thought it through already. So they have a new strategy that they want to go in this direction, and they're telling the next circle around them in their organization. So this is how it's going to be. Let's work on it. Let's plan for it. And we're there initially, just helping to manage that conversation. We're at the front of the room with a flip chart and a pen, facilitating the conversation, or we're on a Zoom screen, trying to keep track of everything and trying to, which is a horrible medium to work in, and those types of conversations initially when you don't know people. But we're there just trying to help that conversation through. We've had conversations with the people that have called the meeting, so we know a little bit about the direction they want to head in, what they're trying to implement. We help them structure their input to the meeting so that it unfolds in the right direction, and help them listen to what they hear back to find out how it's landing with people. So it's almost as simple as just getting a good pair of ears on and helping the conversation go well, and listening for certain dynamics that you think, well, we're going to need to pay some attention to that. Listening for the things that will have to happen next that we need to be supported and need some planning, so that we can help them structure what they want to do. And partly the biggest challenge is the person who's already thought it through, who's come up with the answer, is so excited, energetic, committed, focused on that they forget what it's like when you don't really know what's coming next. Yeah. So I say those three voices of change, they've got that one which is a ball about, it's the rivet pounder, it's the guy that wants to just get on and do it. Mm-hmm. And that's the one that's speaking really loudly for them. So they think that's the only one that's there. And actually somebody else is thinking, yeah, but what about the project I'm halfway through? Am I ever going to get to finish that? Or if you take all my people away, or all these new people come in, how am I going to do what I've already started and I'm excited about, committed to, and getting measured on? So there's all those sort of tensions come in there, and they're hard to really hear them when you're so focused and excited and committed to going off in a new direction. So that's what it is. And it can be a merger or an acquisition, or it could be a divestment, or it could just be they've decided to work in a different way. They've got a new strategy, they want to get into a new market with the same people in the same organization. And that can be equally challenging to people to adapt to that change.
And do you ever come across where the person has come up with the idea and the new strategy, that strategy actually might not be the best thing? That'd be a challenge.
They're probably never the best thing, but they could be good things, they could be bad things. But I've never found somebody that's found like the perfect strategy, because they always change again. if they're the perfect strategy, you just keep going that way. Yeah. But yeah, sometimes they come in and it's an idea that it's not going to work. But if they have that conversation, they'll find out that it won't work that way. But there may be a version of it that will work by talking to people and getting that broader perspective, that greater context for how to make this work, from getting a technical expert, getting a financial expert, getting their operations team, getting their safety team, whatever it is, in the conversation to tell them what they don't know about the plan that they've come up with. So it's about refining it, enhancing it, enriching it by hearing people and getting those inputs.
And is there any advice you would give people that are thinking about going down a road? What sort of stages they should be going through to get?
I think the biggest one is listening, broadening that context as early as possible, so you know how it's going to work, what to watch out for, and start to bring people with you as well, because I think that's probably the bit where most change initiatives run into difficulty, is when it reaches the coalface and actually nobody understands it. Either nobody sees the value, or nobody wants to do it because actually they don't like change.
So change is probably the hardest part. Listening to what you're saying, Alan, change is probably one of the hardest things to do. But it's about broadening those conversations, talking to more people inside your team, and trying them to get the buy-in, but also allowing them the freedom to express their voices of fear, their voices of doubt, and not taking it personally. Because when you have a CEO that's got a specific vision and it's just he's a visionary founder, it quickly drowns out everybody else's voice if you don't have the right sort of change management structure in place to run with that.
I mean, you can try all you like to convince people to come and join you and have the conversation you want to have. But
if
they're
they
still going to have those fears and doubts. So
you
might as well just go and join them where they are. So listen to that for a while. And you get through it quicker by slowing down. Almost.
That's a really good point there. That's a really good point. I've never heard it that way. Slowing it down
Are you recording this?
But that's a really good point, because if you look at the people that we know and maybe ourselves in our business, we're obviously different. But I know for myself that I'm quite fast paced, and that makes you're the lone wolf, so to speak, or the eagle flying away up there. But sometimes you've got to come back down a little bit, slow down, try and find the balance with everybody else, and slowly, it's just small increments, just changing everything. Yeah. I know, you learn something new every day.
And if you're bringing them along, then they're invested as well. If you've got some input from them, then you're going to get more out of that in the long run.
That's right.
For sure.
That's right.
I think it gives them a platform, though, doesn't it? It gives them a platform to feel that when they voice their concerns and their worries, that it's validated. It's not swept under the rug. They've got a platform to actually talk, and an independent party to listen to it and say, listen, we've heard what you've said, and this is what we've heard, and you feed it back. And I suppose communication in the line of what you do becomes extremely important, not Chinese whispers, but this is what's said, this is the feedback, direct conversations.
Yeah, and that can be, very direct conversations, and they can be very, very sort of focused, and it's not just, let's sit around in a circle and talk about how we're feeling. It's like tell me what I'm missing in this plan. Tell me where the biggest risks are to making this success. Tell me when the right time is to do this and when the wrong time is to do that. And hearing from people who have got more expertise in a certain area than you have, and then they'll tell you what you're missing. They'll tell you how to make your plan work. Whereas if you go in that focus, right, everyone get on the train, we're going this direction. Some people will be running away from the platform in the other direction. They don't want to go there. But if you say, okay, so here's where we'd like to head. Tell us how to get there. They'll tell you, and it's I think that's the biggest. I think the thing that makes the biggest difference when companies are trying to change. Yeah.
So we're talking about success there. So you've been doing this for 26
years in this
26
role.
years. Yeah. Wow. And you were talking earlier on, out of that time, you've maybe had like 5-6 clients. So there's a long term with that. It's a long term thing with some clients.
There are small projects in between our big engagements, but we generally go in. There's only 3 of us in the company nowadays. So if we've got one client that is working on something big, it takes all 3 of us to work on that. So we do one at a time. And if they're going well, they tend to have us around for quite a few years. So I kind of that throwaway line, 25 years, and when I've had 5 clients, there's gaps in between the big projects where you do smaller pieces of work. And in our early days of the company, we started off doing small pieces of work, going in for a day or a week. But they tended to then kind of expand a little bit, and you get us to do another thing after the first day or the first week. Then a one-day engagement turns into 6 weeks, turns into a year, turns into 2.5 years. Yeah. So over the time, big long engagements have been our pattern, and it's what we seem to be good at. Filling the gaps isn't what we're good at, and actually going out and marketing ourselves and selling the idea of, we can help you with a big strategic change. So we find our clients normally because they've seen us work before. They've been in an organization that's used us, and they either like us or they remember something about us that was unusual and say, well, actually, let's have a conversation with them and see how it goes. So that's generally how our next big piece of work comes about. And it's worked that way for a long time. It feels like that's getting more difficult now, because in the current work that we're doing, we started that around about the time of the pandemic. And we're not on the road the way that we used to. We used to be flying about the world all over the place, seeing lots of people face to face. And so much of our work is done on a Microsoft Teams or Zoom screen nowadays. It's business development for our kind of business is getting a bit of an unknown quantity. So we're having to experiment just now to try and figure out what our company's going to look like when this current project finishes. Whether that's in a month's time, a year's time, or 3 years' time, we'll probably have to find the next one in a very different way.
And that's one of the things that we talk about a lot in the podcast, like adapting your business. There's political change, there's unrest, and it's always navigating your way around it. I mean, 26 years, Alan, that's a hell of a long time to be in the same company.
I started when I was 13.
I was going to say you started when you were 10, but I wasn't.
But on a serious note, 3 of you together for that length of time, that is tremendous. That tells me that he's obviously get on well. He's have a I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think
you
that's
don't
something
get
you can't just skim over.
Yeah, you
cannot
don't.
skim
You
over
don't
that.
get that anymore. There's some frightening statistics about how long people stay in businesses, and there's no longevity anymore. It's not like, maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it is a generational thing where parents, they used to stay in a job for 20, 30 years, and that's where they retired.
Yeah.
But it's so to get somebody that's been in the same industry doing the same thing for 25 years is rare.
Yeah.
It's unusual.
I think if we'd had different ambitions for our business and wanted to grow it, it would have been very different. So at one point, and when we started up, we grew up to about 16 people in the first sort of 3 years, and then after maybe 4 years, it actually felt like there was two businesses working, one doing the longer strategic projects and one part of the business still doing very, very short engagements. So we split the company in two, and the three of us who still work together went off in one direction and the rest of the company went off in the other direction. So the three of us stayed together, but we've never attempted to grow it. So we've never recruited. And since 2004, when we split the company up into two, we've never recruited. We've never brought anybody new on, other than some support staff. We don't have any support staff anymore, but we used to have somebody back manning the office and keeping things running and keeping us connected in between travel engagements and things, and booking our travel and things. But we don't do as much travel now, and we're generally working on one thing, so we don't need that support anymore. But if we tried to grow the company, probably it would have got to a point where each of us individually didn't fit anymore, so we'd go off and do something else. So we're like sort of sole practitioners, but there just happens to be three of us that work together, and we're kind of three parts of a normal functioning human. None of us could probably do it all that well on our own.
How interesting or how difficult is it to adapt to the new normal? Because the new normal is, previously you said you used to fly everywhere, and then COVID came, and now everything's on a screen, and there's two thoughts. It's a hell of a convenient to jump on a meeting and talk to somebody over a screen. But what about that face-to-face interaction? Because I think that human interaction, especially in the line of what you do, sitting across the table from somebody is always a lot more easier because you can read people, you understand it better. Over a screen, a lot of that gets lost in translation. Has that been a difficult road for you guys?
It has, yeah. And we still do a bit of the face-to-face work, so there's still a bit of travel involved in the work, but it's for very, very specific engagements, very specific meetings that they have with specific groups. So a leadership team comes together, that still works together. They're going to come together for 2 or 3 days. They're going to get in a room together. Most of our other pieces of work with clients, everything gets shrunk down and split into 1 hour chunks, because that's probably about as much time as people want to spend on a Zoom call or Teams call.
Yeah, so
you end up whereas you used to get together, and I'd fly out somewhere for a couple of weeks, and I'd have some half-day meetings, some 1 hour meetings, some full-day meetings. You don't do the half-day and the full-day meetings anymore unless you're planning for months ahead. Yeah. Everything's in those 1 hour chunks. So you just have to work it a different way. You have to think the task through in a different way.
So it's about adapting and changing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if your business is small or large. Yeah. It's how you adapt to those changes, because it happens. And I suppose it happens very quickly. You don't really see that coming.
Well, it did in 2020. I mean, we didn't plan to change our way of working that way. But when you don't have a choice, you have to make it work. So we made it work just as everybody made it work. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think anybody really wanted to be sitting in front of a Zoom screen for the bulk of their working lives. But when you have that period of a few months, 6 months, a year, where that's the only way you can do anything, you get used to it. And the change is difficult, but you don't have a choice. So you do that, and we emerge on the other side of it. And actually, we found a way of making that work. So it's okay.
Would you go back? Sorry,
there's no trend you see of people getting back together again more. Like, I'm feeling there's more now. I see people want to actually get together than sit in a Zoom call for an hour.
Yeah.
I know it's easier if you're obviously a bit more local, but if you're flying out in places, it's definitely more convenient.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot to be said with what Vic has said there. People getting together, and you get that feeling and vibe and the body language, and you get a bit more rapport if you're actually there physically rather than being on a Zoom call.
I think what people will do, they'll find new ways to have that kind of face-to-face personal interaction. Think of this morning, for example. We could have done this over Zoom, but actually sitting around a table, you have a better or different kind of conversation when you sit around a table. A colleague was doing a project a couple of years ago with an IT company, and it's global. So she's working at strange time zones, strange times of the day. But there was one other person that was nearby in Scotland who was doing exactly the same. So they'd meet up regularly and sit together, have a cup of coffee, have a chat, you know, be the social interaction, but they'd also do a bit of work as well. Mm-hmm. So you find ways of building that back in. And I always look for opportunities to actually sit down with people and get away from my screen and my microphone, an excuse to put on a pair of trousers that
day. It's an interesting point because if you look at commercial property and office blocks and they're becoming a lot more vacant. But if you look at company culture and knowledge transfer, and my son comes from an environment where he went to university in COVID, his job is completely remote. But one of these biggest challenges is knowledge transfer because they're not sitting in an office. And how do you learn? I think you have to work twice as hard because that knowledge transfer, you can't just turn to someone and go, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And so that making that work, I think, has become increasingly difficult. But on the other side, if I'm an employee and I look at my travel costs, where I used to travel 5 days a week into the city or wherever, and I only have to do it 2 days a week, it saves. So yeah. I think, and that's why I asked you about the culture. I think there's a lot of changes happening, and it's how you deal with that change. Because some people just bury their heads in the sand. They go, and then the business will suffer eventually, long term.
Yeah.
Around it. So it's always just interesting face to face. If you could go back, would you change it face to face, or would it be a hybrid?
There's a lot of the previous way of working I really, really miss. So, and I used to, you know, it's going back quite a bit of time before the pandemic. I had this manic period where I think I was in Australia 4 times in 1 year for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And in between I was in South America, North America, Africa, Asia, and doing work in the UK. I was doing work in the middle of the night before we had Zoom, one of our clients had a thing called telepresence. And so you have a room, we've got an arc of 6 chairs around this massive screen. So you get life-size, you know, kind of images of the people that you're talking to on the other end. So there's 6 of us in London, 6 of them I think it was in Brisbane. You'd have meetings that way. Time differences don't work very, very well for that. So at one point they had me training a group of people in Brisbane. And my training session started at 2:00 in the morning and finished at 6 a.m. in the morning. So I had to travel down to London, stay in a hotel, and then get up. And you know, the only people in the building were the cleaners and the security guy, and go into this room and do that. And it's a bit mad, but it's fun as well doing that. It's like, I'm going to remember this meeting. I'm going to remember this training course. And it's like I'll do the same training course face to face, and I'll not remember a thing about it. I'll remember this one. But yeah, that year or 2 years when I was on long haul flights, literally 3 weeks out of every month. It was great fun, but it was exhausting as well.
Yeah. Sure.
So I don't have that side of it here. Some sort of hybrid, some sort of balance between the two would be wonderful. But also, there's our clients and we, you know, we all are more conscious of our environmental impact as well. And actually, I think about the air miles and the carbon footprint that I had back then, and it was horrendous. So I don't really want to go back all the way there. And if we could find a way of doing things that don't have that environmental impact, but also don't have that kind of personal toll on you of, you know, the long hours and the time zones and being away from home, you know, that would be great as well. Bringing a wee bit of it back in has been good since the end of the pandemic, though.
I have a question for you, right? Apart from the money, why do you do what you do? What is it you like about it?
That's a really good question. I guess it is apart from the money, unfortunately. No, I really enjoy working with people on difficult problems and helping them figure it out. And
the reason why I say this is because to be in the same job, obviously it's changed to, you know, having your 16 team, and then you guys, the 3 of you went out and did your thing. You know, that's a long time to be in that sector. Well, a few changes along the way, I'd imagine, but yes, money's a big factor for everybody. That's why we do it, because we want to make money. We want to have nice things. We want to go on holiday, and you know, some people want to dress and the materialistic, all these things. But to keep going for that amount of time, it can't always just be about the money. So you would say it's the help that you're giving people and the changes that you're making.
Yeah, it's figuring out a difficult problem. I like solving problems. I like getting something that's really complex and trying to figure it out and trying to understand how it works. You know, taking some. As a kid, I used to play with Lego and Meccano and take things apart. I used to, get old radios from the auction room and take them to bits and see if I could make them to fix them. I'm not an electrical engineer. I didn't have a soldering iron. I like taking things apart and seeing if I could get them back together again and see if they'd still work. And it's a little bit of that, really. It's finding something that is either broken that needs fixed and they want help fixing it, or finding something that's not broken but they want to kind of expand it or enhance it or change it, and seeing how they do that. So that's the bit. It's like it's the sort of curious brain part of it is what makes me tick.
And do you, like the businesses you've been involved in, has there been a kind of something that stands out that's been a common factor in what the challenges are in the businesses that you've worked with? What are the problems there?
One of the bits that's sort of common to all of them is that if you can draw a picture of how everything fits together, it's often a picture that people haven't seen before. Yeah. So if you can find some way of representing, saying, so this is the whole thing, whether it's a systems map or process diagrams, or literally, we had an artist working with us on one project, basically drawing a cartoon of a mining operation and how mining can operate sustainably. Mm-hmm. So literally, it was a 5 meter long, 1.5 meter high piece of paper. He was a cartoonist. He was drawing it. So this is how everything fits together. So we'd use that as a basis of having conversations about the bit that we're working on just now, the bit that needs to change. We sometimes do it with spreadsheets, get loads and loads of data and like graph out the key metrics in the company or in the operation or the business and say, so this is how things fit together. So I think that's the bit that's key in it. And it's very, very difficult to change direction strategically without being able to draw a picture and show people how it all fits together. So I think that's the bit that we do. But it takes very, very different forms depending on where we're doing it.
Is that like because a lot of people talk about in business, anybody that's in business, whether they're working for themselves, whether they've got 5 employees to 1,000 employees, it's like that roadmap, that vision board, that, this is where we're going to, this is how we're going to get there. And it's like stepping stones, because when you've got a full team, you might have the introvert, you might have the extrovert, you might have the person that's just 100 mile an hour, you might have the person that just needs everything explained really calmly and softly. Is that kind of where because when you were saying earlier on, that's kind of where you're fitting in my head anyway, where you're listening and you're trying to figure out how they keep that map, because the CEO, whoever's above, has created that path. All you're doing is trying to align everybody to make sure they get there.
Yeah, that's it. It's a big part of it. And if you think of a sort of traditional meeting where you've got a facilitator at the front of the room with a flip chart, they're writing things up so that people can see that they've been heard. So what you're writing up is not so that you've got a document at the end of it that says here's everything that was said. So when somebody says something, you say something, you say something, you say something, it's going on the flip chart. People see that it's been listened to, recorded, and fits together. And the idea of that big picture thinking, one of the things that we do is we don't usually use small flip charts, because you get like an A1 size of paper that you can see at one time. We'd rather have a 5 meter sheet of paper along one wall. So in our office, we've got huge walls that are actually 9 meters long that you could cover with paper and build that picture up. It can be, if you've got somebody that can draw stick men, that's enough graphic or artistic skill that you need. A lot of it's words, a lot of it's graphs, and you put everything up on the wall and you start to see the links between it. And it's that thing about seeing the connections between the small parts in it. When we're coaching people, we use these big maps that go on the wall. So you're drawing a picture of a person's life and you say, here's where you are just now, here's where you're headed, here's where you came from. Let's see how things relate to each other. And you're making those connections between things that seem separate. Finding out, somebody describes what they want to be doing in 10 years' time. You delve into their background to find, so where did you first have that ambition, that aspiration? Where did that come from? Who does that come from? Was there an influence in your life, in your career, or in your family where that comes from? And that you get there by drawing out, by mapping it out.
Suppose when you're asking these types of questions, and if I was going to pick you as my subject today, the body language, it changed in you completely when you started thinking back. Maybe this is a part of NLP and whatnot, but you got excited talking about Meccano and Lego, and I could just see the whole passion it just oozed right out of you there. And that's really good, because that's where it's all coming from at that point. When you start talking about problem solving, your body all changed. And I suppose you're seeing that in people when you're asking the questions. You know what's going to happen there.
Absolutely.
And that's that person, that's it. And when everybody sees that, and as you say, when it's drawn on the board and written on the board, totally get it. That's absolutely a belter, as I would call it.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk to people about something and their voice can be saying one thing and their body's telling you something different. And it's getting to know that. So, you're in a conversation and somebody takes a step back. They keep on talking and they're very calm, very focused. But the fact that they're stepping back tells them they're uncomfortable about something. Mm-hmm. So you can ask about, is there anything you're uncomfortable about in this situation? Yeah. You don't have to say, I just saw you step back. You must be uncomfortable about something. You're not naming it. You're just saying, is there anything that makes you uncomfortable about this? And you get it. So you're just picking up on those clues all along. Absolutely.
The staff engagement things. And there was a whole point of bringing everybody along the journey. This is where we're going. So it was the structure of the business. So obviously we have the owners, and then we're bringing in managers. This is the plan. You've got full-time staff and part-time staff. And one of our longest standing staff members was part-time. So she was like visibly in the hump for 2 days after this meeting until I had to shout her in and go like there's nothing wrong. I'm like, well, there's obviously something wrong. And it's because she was at the bottom as a part-time member of staff. It's easy to see where I sit in all of this. Yeah. Instead of the value that we actually had for her, this is what she's seen when we were trying to take her along this journey. Yeah. So
she's anticipating everything tumbling
down the hill. Yes, exactly. All this is actually in there to help you rather than...
How important is data, Alan, in what you do?
It's really important at the right time. No amount of data will tell you that you shouldn't feel the way you feel. So if somebody's nervous or upset or worried about it, giving them data is not going to help with that. But yeah, if you want to figure out, is this the right direction to go in? You need some data to help you figure out. So when we say that direction, let's
validate to see that this is a good idea, and this is what the data tells us that it's a good idea.
But also the data as you're going along the way. Yeah. So are we making the right progress?
So the right milestones.
Has something got worse because we've shifted direction and we're taking our eye off it? So you absolutely need those dashboards and those.
And how often do guys pay attention to the data in the beginning?
Depends what's going on for them, but you can usually have that conversation as long as you're not ignoring the other conversations that have to happen. So if you're listening to that voice of doubt, you can also have the conversation about the voice of kind of certainty and that.
So this is
those discipline processes you need to set along the way. You can have that conversation as long as you're not ignoring the ones that are kind of front and center for people.
Okay,
this is the thing though, because I remember talking about data before. We had Craig and Ross that owns Dofo's, the pet stores. And coming on, you asked the same question, and I think data serves a purpose.
Yeah, it's not the be all and end all.
It's 100% not. Don't get me wrong. If you've not got staff, especially in a big organisation, if staff's not turning up and there's a lot of absences, then you also have to look at that and go, well, maybe we've got the wrong staff, maybe we've got the wrong manager, maybe the wrong culture. You go down that whole rabbit hole. But it's a feeling most of the time when you've got a big organisation, and ensuring that the managers are actually the right managers. Could if you were buying a business, right away you're looking at the P&L, but then you're looking at the staff retention. Who's the longest serving member? How many are the longest serving members? You're looking at all of that because that's giving you an idea. The data will tell you, but if you go in there for a day or a few hours, you'll already get a vibe if you're walking around quietly, just absorbing, and it's based on your visual. Your visual impact with everybody. I think they both play a critical part, but I think ultimately it comes down to people and the feelings, and it might be the soft approach, but that tells you a lot about people.
I think there is no right or wrong. I do think there's a role for data. Data does make that data helps you make informed decisions. Like Alan says, it has to be the right data. Okay, can't just be any data. And you know what the interesting thing is? It's data that you feel comfortable with. You need to buy into the data. Doesn't matter what I tell you, okay? Doesn't matter what anybody tells you. If you don't think that data will make a difference in your strategic decision-making process, serves no purpose. And then there's on the other side, there is the, let's call it the emotional intelligence. You need to be emotionally intelligent to sit and read people, to understand, to slow it down, to up it at different, because people are in different stages with your organization. They're not all running at the same pace. So, and you said it correctly. Some people are slow to take the information on. They need a lot more information to process it. Some people grasp it quickly. It's about finding that balance between them and putting everything into cohesion so you can move forward. Because if you think about it, if there's a cart dragging 6 horses and 2 of the horses are slow and they don't understand, that cart ain't moving nowhere. because you need them all to run at the same pace going forward. So it's a combination of everything going together. It's not just, I don't think there's one size fits all or one bit of secret sauce for every business. They're all different and they all have different needs, different aspirations. They want to do things differently. And it's about getting the best out of them to make sure that they achieve that, because it's difficult in business. I mean, I say to you, 1 to 3 is the most difficult years in starting your business, but 3 to 5 is equally as difficult as you grow it. After 5, you're okay. 5 to 7, 7 to 10, and then you start back 3, 5, 7, because things change. You need to adapt, and change is a constant. And we live in an age of instant changes. I mean, I saw something interesting. They have got robots, but like robots that work in recycling plants in China. It's like, so robots are the next thing, like in construction. Is that going to change the way labor looks at it? I don't know how far they are with it, but it is interesting when you see at what pace technology moves and how it impacts your business. So some businesses won't be impacted by technology, but your business is impacted by technology in one shape, way, or form. And if you're not going to look at those risks, and for me, business is about managing risks. Some risks help you, some risks hinder you, but are you able to identify them? And are you able to create something around it that says, this is how this risk is going to get to minimize the ones that's going to hinder you, maximize the ones that's going to help you. And often an outsider's input is vital because you're so close to that it becomes very difficult to see the wood from the trees. It's a perspective.
There you go then. Well, that's been really good having you on, Al. I've really enjoyed it, pal. Lots of things to take from there. So if anybody's looking to find you and they are looking for your help, where would they get you?
So online we're at forthroad.com. It's spelt like the bridge. We don't run the bridge. We're also setting up another. This is one of our experiments to see what comes next. It's a website called executivearts.co.uk, and that's where we're really trying to shrink what we do down to the very core. And it's these change management tools that I've talked about. So these are the really at the heart of what we do and how we see the world when we go into these big conversations. But we're trying to, and one of the sort of taglines we're playing with just now is pocket-sized big thinking. So you take these really big approaches, these complex things, and make them as simple as you can so you can get some value out of it. And then if you want more help with it, you come to us and we can help you get, take to the next step there. So we've been working on that this year, and we launched that website, executivearts.co.uk, to start trying to see if that's the next sort of shape of what we do.
Evolution.
It's an evolution. Yeah, and it's really bringing what's deep within what we do up to the surface and seeing. So will that work? And we one of the experiments was to develop some apps. We never got we decided not to do it in the version that would go in the App Store. So they're little online tools. So if you've got 20 minutes and you need to think through a problem, you can use one of these tools to kind of think it through without any of our help, and they're completely free. But if you find them helpful, then that's great. Come and talk to us. If you find them unhelpful, talk to us as well. Tell us what's not working. And if you need a little bit more help, phone us up and have a chat. And that's how we're hoping that our business will evolve next when we next have to find a gap in between our big projects. So we're busy and we're excited by that just now.
Well, I'm sure we can help. Definitely sure we can help.
Yeah, we look at that. And then, so we finish.
This is your world.
Shape it.
Or someone else will.